Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are here to take your source material, cut through the noise, and extract the knowledge you need to be truly well-informed. Today, we are time traveling way back, landing right in the middle of 15th century northern India. Quite a turbulent time, spiritually vibrant too. And our focus is a mystic poet who was, well, a kind of spiritual lightning rod, Kabir Das, a figure whose life and words were just so radically simple, they actually managed to unite and simultaneously outrage the big religious institutions of his day. Okay, let's unpack this. Our source material paints this picture of a simple weaver who somehow becomes one of the most profound voices in history, really rising above all that sectarian dogma. Our mission here is to pull out the core philosophical insights that make his teachings, well, shockingly relevant even today, standing, 600 years later?
It's fascinating, isn't it? Because Kabir's work wasn't really intellectual in the typical sense. It was purely from experience. He was like the ultimate spiritual synthesizer.
Yeah.
He took these essential, universal truths that were often hidden inside complicated systems, and he just boiled them down to a single, really powerful idea that the divine isn't out there in rituals or buildings. It's intimately within your own consciousness. Right here.
Yeah, that distinctive approach is absolutely key. Like, our sources really emphasize that he was this pure voice of truth, divine wisdom, and completely indifferent to religious labels, a master disruptor, you could say, daring to question both the Brahmin priest and the Muslim cleric, demanding inner sincerity over just going through the motions. To really get the weight of his message, we have to look at his beginnings, right? So Kabir Das, born around maybe 1440, probably in Varanasi, and into this humble family of Julahas, weavers. He literally earned his living weaving cloth, simple, repetitive work.
And that humble origin is just incredibly important. It instantly defines how revolutionary he was. I mean, think about 15th century India. Society was so rigidly structured, so for a simple working-class weaver to challenge the highest religious and social authorities, the Brahmins, the ulema, that was almost unheard of, and frankly, pretty dangerous.
Absolutely. And those legends around his birth, the story that he was found floating on a lotus in Lahartar Lake, they're potent symbols. They kind of signify that his message was rooted in something divine, maybe, not just earthly lineage or inherited authority, which back then was pretty much the only way a common person could even get a spiritual platform.
Critically, he stood right at the crossroads. He grew up surrounded by all the devotional intensity of Hinduism and the structured monotheism of Islam. He soaked up both influences, but declared allegiance to neither. His identity was just centered entirely on finding that transcendent truth, not joining a particular club. His day job was weaving thread, sure, but his real life's work, it was weaving this universal path of truth and love right into human understanding.
And the impact came from that raw authenticity, didn't it? His poetry, the dohas, they were simple. In the common language people actually spoke, not fancy Sanskrit or Persian, which only the educated elite knew. Because he spoke from direct experience, his words just bypassed all the intellectual gatekeepers. They went straight to the heart of the common person. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because he didn't just speak plainly, he used symbols from his everyday life, the most ordinary things. To express the deepest concepts, he made the divine, which can feel so abstract, incredibly accessible. We see these metaphors like the weaver, the river, the bird, and crucially the breath. They're woven all through his poetry.
Oh, those metaphors are absolutely intentional tools. Like, the weaver isn't just his job description. It becomes this symbol for God, or maybe creation itself, constantly weaving the fabric of the universe and our lives, too. And the breath, well, that's the ultimate symbol of the divine being intimate, close. If God is a life force vibrating in every single atom, present in every breath you take in and out, then, well, you can't escape the divine, can you? It's literally closer to you than your own hands and feet.
Right. And these images, they all supported his central point, rejecting the external search. He fundamentally redirected where people were looking. He challenged those doing elaborate rituals out in the street or, fasting alone somewhere, basically saying, "Where are you searching for me, devotee? I'm right here with you, not in temples, not in mosques."
And this rejection really defined his view of ultimate liberation, what they call moksha. He didn't see it as something that happens only after you die, after all the rituals and purification. Instead, he used that beautiful metaphor of the soul, like an individual drop of water, returning to the infinite ocean. The realization, the moksha itself, happens in this life. Right now, in the present moment. It happens when the seeker finally recognizes that the drop and the ocean are fundamentally the same thing, one reality.
That recognition that spiritual freedom is attainable right here, right now. That's really the bedrock of his most powerful teachings, isn't it? It forces us, even today, to kind of redefine what spirituality even means, which leads us straight into his, like, 4 core principles that still resonate so strongly.
Exactly. So teaching number 1 is this principle of inherent divinity. God is within you. Simple as that. He just dismissed pilgrimage, idol worship, complicated rituals. He argued the divine resides right there in the heart of your awareness, and he captured that idea of non-duality, the realization that the individual self and the infinite aren't actually separate. With that incredibly powerful image, the drop merges into the ocean, but the ocean also merges into the drop. It's a two-way street.
But hang on, if he was so radical, challenging the very foundations of 2 massive entrenched religions, and in such a turbulent political time, too, the Delhi Sultanate era, didn't that just isolate him? I mean, how did a simple weaver build a following strong enough to somehow transcend both of those established powers?
Well, that's where teaching number 2 comes in. Beyond religion and division. His genius, really, was in transcending the labels. He did it by focusing only on intention and direct experience. He didn't just, tolerate Hinduism and Islam. He saw them both as potentially restrictive boxes if they were separated from sincere inner practice. He simply asked for purity of heart, whatever label you wore. He said, if you are Hindu, be true to your heart. If you are Muslim, let your heart be pure, for the one you seek is beyond both. See, by demanding truthfulness, he appealed directly to the core integrity of the individual, not the dogma of the group.
Okay, that makes sense. And teaching number 3 seems to flow right out of his practical life: simplicity and awareness. He taught that awakening doesn't need, like, complex ascetic practices or hiding away in monasteries or on mountains. It just requires awareness and humility, found simply by living with love and mindfulness in your everyday life. Spiritual freedom is meant to be a natural state, he thought, not something you strain to achieve.
Precisely. And that ties right into teaching number 4, the guru as the bridge. Now, he had profound reverence for the Satguru, the true inner teacher. But crucially, he defined this not as some personality you have to follow blindly, but as the principle of light itself, the inner wisdom that wakes you up from ignorance. This is why we have that famous, almost startling declaration that puts the guide even above the goal. Guru and God both stand before me, to whom shall I bow first? I bow to the Guru who showed me God. The inner awakening, that's the highest path.
Wow. So if we connect all this to the bigger picture, Kabir's entire philosophy sounds like this universal path to oneness, achieved through a pretty remarkable synthesis. He somehow managed to weave together 3 major and seemingly quite different spiritual traditions that were active in his time.
Exactly right. And this synthesis is key, I think, to his enduring power. He drew on the intense emotional devotion of the Bhakti movement, but instead of aiming that passion towards an idol or a specific deity in a temple, he directed it inward, to the divine within. And then he mirrored the path of Sufism, that's the mystical Islamic tradition, by focusing on personal, non-institutional divine love. Again, stripping away the outer structure.
Okay, Bhakti and Sufism, and then he layered that with the philosophical rigor of Advaita Vedanta.
Right.
Which, for listeners who might not know the term, that's the ancient tradition of non-duality, the philosophical understanding that the individual self, the Atman, and the supreme reality, Brahman, aren't actually 2 separate things, they're one.
Yes. By blending Bhakti's heart, Sufism's love, and Advaita's wisdom, he created this singular, really accessible path. And it all centered around his core concept of Sahaj Samadhi.
Sahaj Samadhi, okay, it's often translated as something like the natural state of enlightenment, but what does that actually mean, practically speaking?
Yeah, natural state is a good way to put it. It means achieving spiritual freedom without having to leave your job or your family or your community. It's meant to be this constant, effortless state of inner connection. It grounds the transcendent right in the middle of the mundane, everyday world. Kabir fundamentally rejected the kind of renunciation required by many spiritual paths back then. He said true enlightenment isn't forced, it's natural, like breathing. You achieve it through conscious, loving engagement with the world, not by escaping it.
So, okay, what does this all mean for our daily life then? Today, it sounds like a completely different way to approach, well, practice spirituality.
It really is. It's a radical recalibration, you could say. Kabir taught that the real temple, it's the body itself. The real prayer, it's silence. And the real God, it's truth itself. So if the real God is truth, then the spiritual practice basically becomes the simple act of living honestly, mindfully, lovingly. Rather than performing external ceremonies or rituals, it just recenters your entire focus on the direct experience of the here and now.
That's a powerful idea. And profoundly democratic, really. It just cuts across all those social and religious boundaries. And it echoes those incredibly powerful final lines you often hear from his poetry. That closing reminder that just spans the centuries. "Oh, servant, where do you seek me? Lo, I am beside you. I am in every breath you take." So let's bring this deep dive into Kabir Das toward a close. He was fundamentally a poet of truth. A mirror, maybe, reflecting our own internal reality back at us. Not really a preacher pushing a religion or a saint asking for worship. He was simply, it seems, a source of light, illuminating the divine wisdom that, according to him, already resides inside us, just waiting to be recognized in every single heart.
And that really raises an important question for all of us, doesn't it? Based on his whole philosophy. Kabir's message seems to be that awakening isn't about believing in something out there or achieving some distant goal. It's more the realization that you already are that higher truth, and you realize it through simple moment-to-moment awareness. So thinking about that, if Kabir defined the real temple as the body and the real prayer as silence, what single daily habit, maybe something small, could you replace with just 5 minutes of silence today? Just to try and experience that Sahaj Samadhi, that conscious living he championed. What does your inner truth, right now, maybe need you to stop searching for externally?
That's a wonderful thought to mull over. Thank you for going on this deep dive into Kabir's timeless wisdom with us today. We'll see you next time.